So it might just be worth reflecting on how you were diagnosed.
Yeah, so that was 5 years ago, and I was lucky because I had symptoms, is the way I look at it. I had to get up at night so many times to pee, it had become a problem. I went to see my doctor and he did a physical exam and a PSA blood test, and I was then referred and had a biopsy and eventually an MRI scan. I understand things will be different with ReIMAGINE.
They will, and the reason they will be different is that each of those steps that you've described can get it wrong. We now know that the digital rectal examination is a very poor test.
Right.
Then on top of that you add PSA, and we're realizing now that not all cancers make enough PSA for us to detect it. And of course a lot of PSAs are raised for reasons other than cancer. So you can see how men are dependent on these two tests playing out correctly when they can make errors in both directions. Now you got an MRI after all those tests. Had those tests been incorrectly negative, you may never have got either to a biopsy or an MRI. So what we want to do is bring the MRI right forward, because we believe that's the most valid and reliable of all the tests.
So that means men can be tested and have more assurance about their diagnosis? Because I know a lot of men who are diagnosed, they're concerned that things may not be accurate, it may be more aggressive than they're told, and so they opt to have a more radical treatment perhaps than they need.
Yeah, and that was necessary in the past. The only way to correct that was to overtreat, just in case. What we hope to do in ReIMAGINE is get away from that uncertainty and give the men as exact information as possible to give them, so they can make a choice about whether or not to have a biopsy, and indeed whether or not to have treatment.
So what does it mean for men that participate in the ReIMAGINE study?
So there'll be two parts to ReIMAGINE. The one that will affect most men, over 1,000 we hope, will be part of the standard diagnosis. So men will have everything they would have got otherwise, except it will be at a very high quality. But we will ask them to do two things. And one is to donate some blood. So not very much blood, it's 50 mils, which sounds like a lot, but a can of Coke has 330 mils, so it's about a sixth of that. And we'll also ask them to donate some tissue. And it will mean that we can do extra analyses on the tissue to find out more about the cancer, genetic testing for instance, but also that we can save that tissue for the future in case a test becomes available that we think offers some value or some insight that we don't currently have. And of course all these men will get very, very good attention by the research team, and also get the best possible MRI and the best possible biopsy that we can do. There's another component to ReIMAGINE, and this will affect fewer men, and also this is not a part you can volunteer to take part in, because we will approach men by invitation. And this is a random invitation. It needs to be random so that we get a select representative view of all the men out there. And that will generate probably about 350 men who will come for an MRI. And these will be men who've never really been to see a doctor or urologist about a prostate problem before. And we're going to see what the true rate of cancers within the prostate, as determined by MRI, is in the community if you do this random invitation. That's really quite hard to do, so the way we'll do it is quite complicated, but the individual will have to give up 2 to 3 hours of time to kind of come up to hospital on a weekday or maybe even a Saturday. The MRI will take about 15 minutes to do. There'll be nothing put in their rectums, there'll be no examinations. The MRI will not involve an injection of any type. So all the man has to do is lie there quietly and still for 15 minutes, listening to some terrible music. We will ask them to do a little blood test, and that's just to measure PSA, because remember, these men didn't come because of an abnormal rectal exam or PSA. And this is the first time we've tried to screen men with an MRI.